"Hey, man, what's up?" Listen, I'm not going to tell my age, but I knew Corey before he was born. So his aunt, her and I were friends in high school, and his aunt's sister, his mom was pregnant with Corey when we met. So just to see him is crazy.
Wow.
He's got ribbons. No more diapers.
No more diapers. And that was up until he left in '98, and I was still in those diapers. So
it actually was about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've come a long way. It was a hard road. A lot of trauma went with bedwetting. So and just kind of speak on what you just said there. The reason that I've maintained communication with Sean is because I looked up to Sean so much when I was younger, and when I think about someone who was waiting tables and had a dream as a young man, and then is now where you're at in life, it's beyond inspirational. And even before you did that, when you were still just a Casa Garden, if I may say so.
No.
Were you not Casa?
Olive Garden, bro.
Olive Garden, sorry. Oh, wait, Janet was a Casa.
No disrespect to Olive Garden. No.
Janet was a Casa, you were the Olive Garden. But I remember there was a few things that I hung on to that I do to this day. And one of them was this thing with my jaw that I always thought was cool when you did it. You always were sitting around here doing this.
Oh my God.
I always thought it was so, I don't know why, but I always thought it was cool. So I always replicated that as a young man.
Just so you know, I never knew this. But go ahead.
Yeah. And then licking my lips. I still did that a lot. Because you're like, your lips are chapped. And I remember this one, Janet was there. And I was like, he's like, just lick them like this. And I lick my lips. And Janet's like, don't tell them to do that. They're going to get more cracked. Use chapstick. He's like, no, trust me, just lick your lips. Okay.
Oh my God.
So there's little things, like ever since I was a little kid that I still...
You heard it TMI, right? Okay, I'm just saying. Just saying.
That's fun. Scott knows I do this all the time. I just wanted to give a little background. So we're there. But you were inspiration. You were doing modeling back then. I went in to try and do modeling at Talent Plus. I always thought it was great that you were an artist as well, and used to sit down with me and draw with me. And of course, Janet did as well, and that was fantastic. But I didn't have a dude. I didn't have a dude in my life that was a guy that I looked up to. And so you've always been that guy. So I greatly appreciate you coming out and making that time.
Thank you, brother. Corey was just I'm serious, just an incredible kid since day one. I mean, he was really like my little brother, and he's always had a great heart, and he's always been very compassionate as a person, but towards others. And just to see him grow up, and I told him, I'm just so proud of what he's doing, and he's an advocate to other people, they don't really have a voice or an opportunities, and this is what he does. And so I'm always in support of what he does and who he is.
Thank you. So let's find out what Sean does.
Kumbaya.
It's a full circle moment. So the whole thing with chasing dreams, I wanted to ask you, when did you know what your purpose was, or that you were going to make that dream a reality? Was there a point in your life when you said, I'm going for it, no matter what? When it was like breathing?
I mean, like with anything, you live and your experiences are your greatest teachers. And I think that's very important that we allow that. And I had to have a multitude of experiences. And I did not know what I wanted to do with myself. I've always been fortunate enough. My first gift that I discovered I had since I was a little boy, very, very early on, was I'm a fine artist. But even in that aspect, I still didn't know. Because at one point, I thought I was going to be an architect. Then I thought I was going to be a graphic artist. I just didn't know. And so art was still a major part of who I am. But as life went on, there was just still something missing. And I had no clue of what I wanted to do. And I just worked random jobs. And I was just existing. Like, it was very, very frustrating. Now, true story, I don't think many people have never told this. So I discovered what I wanted to do much, much later in life. Like, much later. And I'm very transparent about my journey. I'm not going to tell you everything, but I remember a friend of mine who was always clear of what he wanted to do in life. He was always clear. And I said, man, that's incredible. He's another artist. This is BL. So this is another guy we went to high school with. Not choreographer.
I didn't go to high school at the same time.
So, but he was a year younger than me. And this guy was an incredible artist. We both were artists, and we're both very good. And I knew, man, it's not art completely. And he told me something when I was 21. Now, mind you, I was 21. I still didn't know what I wanted to do. And he told me something that pissed me off. And I let him know that at the time. But that was the start of that fuel. Like, I really got to dig in and find out what the hell I wanted to do. Right? But he told me I was trying to figure it out. And I verbally told him, he said, join the army. Oh, fuck. What do you mean, join the army? And I considered it, but I was pissed. So I almost joined the Marines, but I didn't. And I was still just trying to discover myself, what I wanted to do. And it was very frustrating. And I was so at a loss, seriously, guys, I was so at a loss what I wanted to do. I couldn't make a decision. And at one point for 1 year, I lived with him. And I was 24. Man, I was just frustrated. And when I left, his grandmother was, and his aunt Janet was very kind to open their doors to me, because I was just in this vortex of like, what the hell? I could do so many things, but I just did not know. And I did not. So to answer your question, it took me all the way until I was 27, when I was dead on clear. I said, I'm moving to LA. So in 2 years, I said, I'm out. I'm moving to LA. At that time it was between LA and New York, but I chose LA because I didn't want to deal with winter. That's how I chose LA. Yeah. And I love the sunshine. So, it took a long time. So, I was trying to encourage people, not everybody's timing is the same. But when I tapped in, when I knew at 27, I said, this is what I want to do. I committed. It was full commitment, and I never looked back. And so no matter what the hurdle was, and someone asked me when I moved out to LA, how about did I ever regret it? Not one time. And, you get to work with people that I grew up watching television, or you grew up watching in a movie or whatever. You work with these people, or, different, I've worked for Steven Spielberg, J.J. Abrams, and just many people. And, it happened.
Who's the first person you moved out there that maybe you weren't starstruck by, but you recognized and thought, that's pretty cool, I'm in it? Because I remember a picture that I saw that you said.
What's picture?
It was the guy who played, I don't know his acting name, but it was the guy who played Brother Man from the Fifth Floor on Martin.
Oh, no, not that.
But he was fairly famous as far as I'm concerned. I was St. Louis, Missouri's fit. He had an acting role in Martin.
Yeah, but it didn't move me. I think it was cool. The very first time when I knew I visited LA, and my very first time visiting LA, I was kind of like, let me get the feel of the lay of the land. And I was by myself. A buddy of mine let me stay at his house. He get in his car, and I was driving around just finding things to do. And I stopped at the studio, and I had this little ticket, and I was standing in line at the Arsenio Hall show. That's all I went to. And so I was the last person to get in, and I was sitting up front, and this is crazy how things happen. I was sitting up front, and I was sitting in the hall. He came by and shook my hand. I was like, oh my God, his hand is so soft. It was just weird. But by the time, there was this famous singer who was in the audience. His name, and at this time, he was in his heyday. His name was Keith Washington. And I said, oh, Keith Washington, that's cool. And I said, man, I'm on the Arsenio Hall show. I'm just in the audience. But as fast forward and moving on, that guy, Keith Washington, became a huge fan of mine. We ended up hanging out in Detroit. He showed me all around Detroit. You see how things turn, and I'm doing my thing. But that was my first time kind of like, man, I want to make this happen. It wasn't about meeting Arsenio. I mean, I got to meet so many people, like, they were coming fast. Mm-hmm. How many people I met. But no one
made you give you that.
There was no affirmation through anyone.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
You know, when I moved to LA in 98, I don't know the exact day, I got there June 19th of 98, and I was in my apartment, and I stepped out in the patio, and this person must said, now home. You know, I was just so focused. I was so laser beam focused, and, you know, I've been focused ever since.
So that was my next question too, is about the focus, because I've heard a lot of people ask a lot of people that are in your line of work, what's the secret? What's the secret? What's the secret?
What's the
And
secret?
there is no secret. Well, this is what I was gonna say. That's why I wanted to ask about it, because way I heard it put really well was I was reading a book by Jerry Seinfeld. And he talked about a time, and maybe you can express something similar, but he was outside getting ready to do a show. I forgot what city he was in. He was watching these construction workers, and he was doing a 3-day show. Every day these guys were going in, they're coming out 10 hours a day, looking beat. He was like, man, they look beat down. And he thought to himself, am I putting this much effort into what I want to do for my livelihood is what these guys are doing for their livelihood? Did that just pop on out of nowhere? Started playing Golden Tee, guys? That's not real. That's gotta be false. So was there a moment when you realized it was about the grind, and is it about the grind? I mean, it's no secret, right?
When I first came into the business, I didn't know a lot about the business. You know, I didn't know. All I know is what I want you guys to have to hone in on my craft. Before I left St. Louis, I became, a local celebrity. I started doing my things. I was doing voiceovers, commercials. I was a spokesperson. I'm doing all this. But when I got to Los Angeles, I had to start all over. I didn't have an agent, manager. I didn't know anyone. And so I had to really start all over. So for me, it was always about, okay, just hone in on your craftsmanship, and so it was always about the grind to me. And you start recognizing things in this business. A lot of people want to be seen and heard, and I always said, I don't want to be seen and heard unless I have something to say. And I kept myself busy, always honing on my craft. And I saw this really cool opportunity. I was dating this other actress, and her really good friend at the time. I'm not going to name drop, but she's a big name now. But at the time, she did one big movie, and she was dating another actor. So I went to use what they call a stage reading, and they would have the script live, and they wouldn't do full performance. They would just read from the script. And so a lot of people were there. It's this cool small theater, and so I was in during the break. I said, oh, shit, that's Ted Danson. I said, no, I'm sure. Say something to him, sure. I said, it wasn't like that. So I said, man, listen, Ted, big fan, blah, blah, blah. He was sitting down, and I'm standing up. And so he looked at me. He said, hey, nice to meet you. True story. He said, nice to meet you. What's your name again? I said, Sean Blakemore. What do you do? Something like it. He said, just like that. He said, oh yeah? What are you working on? I said, well, I just got through doing this. I'm doing this play right here, and I'm about to do that. He said, keep at it. Because a lot of people come out there, and I'm an actor, writer, producer, but they're not currently working on anything. Even if you're not on the show, it doesn't matter. You got to show that you're busy, that you're the advocate for yourself. And fast forward, I ended up doing a heavy recurring show that he was on. I said, man, dude, you'll never. And I'm jogging his memory. He's like, oh my gosh. She said, see? It was just turn of events.
Yeah, sticking at it.
Yeah.
That's what I try and talk to on Emmy, because that's something that I didn't have knowledge of, was the persistence, right? And it plays a part in a lot of things in my life. And so one of the things I didn't realize was persistence with my career path comes from a connection of persistence with other parts of my life. So I kind of have a morning routine now that we briefly talked about when I was going through kind of a process where I used to always wait for the magic bullet, right? The magic pill. What's my overnight change? When am I going to wake up inspired? I used to pray rather than in gratitude. I used to pray to wake up inspired. Wake up. So what's my dream? And I had a lot of great success with marketing and Inside the Circle and other things, but I I was just telling a friend this the other day, when the people would ask me about it and I would talk about what I was doing and where I was at with it, I sounded fulfilled, I looked fulfilled, and my kids' plates were full, but I didn't really believe that I was going to retire from these things in the back of my mind until I found this, and it was because I was living my purpose. And I think some of you who I know closely have known this, but when I started the production side of things, and I started the charity, and I started walking with purpose in my everyday life, it was a moment where it was a real God shot, because I never asked for signs. And I was walking and praying at the same time, and I was like, God, if this is my right path, give me a sign now that's undeniably you. And I kid you not, a couple people have heard the story, but I thought somebody threw something in my head, and a bird had come down, pecked me, and I caught him flying away. And I knew then. I had been compelled to take a walk for like 3 or 4 days. I used to think this stuff was hokey and all that, but I realized like the stronger your spirit is, and the more I work on my spirit, the more I work on my mind, things aren't hokey. Things that work for one person may not work for another, vice versa. So I'm open to so many things, but I walk in purpose now, and I try and whatever I do that morning with my routine, I have my 15 minutes of worry. I write down my worries. What can I do about that today, this week, and tomorrow? And then I pray in gratitude and change our mindset. And I meditate for a little bit. And then I hit the gym. Unless my son's home, then I hit the home gym. And then he sometimes does it with me, like this morning. And then that way my day, no matter what it is, I've read scripture, I've meditated, I've prayed, I've worked out. So no matter what hits me in that day, tomorrow I'm stronger. And when I have a hard day, I realize and I have a realization my purpose is still on point. I'm better than I was yesterday. And the things that have hurt me or made me sad or caught me up on that day are not affecting where I'm going to go the next day, because I'm in my purpose. And that's why I asked you that question. I remember having a talk with you about it earlier in the spring when I was going through some stuff. And so when you look back at you kind of talked about when you found your purpose, but was there something that became a routine that helped you change your mindset?
You know, I always talk about experiences, and everything that you talked about, I try to encourage people to do. Because when people are looking for, okay, what's the silver bullet? How do you do it? And there's no tricks to it, but there's a process to it. I don't care what you desire. There's some basic principles that must apply in order for that to come to pass, and that is a consistent effort. It has to be a consistency in your effort. If you make it in layman's terms, if you think about things, you think about what's the difference between an amateur and a pro? The only difference are experiences over time. Our experiences over time. That is the difference. But to achieve greatness, to achieve any goals, and to be good at it, you have to be consistent in your efforts. That's the silver bullet. It takes a mindset. That is a successful mindset. Just understand you got to be in a process in order to progress. You got to do something. Everything you said, you were doing something. Guess what word I'm not a fan of? Hope. Can't stand it. Is it hope? Really? What's wrong with hope? Because if you correlate most people who say, man, hope, they stand by waiting for it to happen.
Hope has no action.
Hope has no action. Faith and belief does. When you have faith in something, you believe in something, you move in that manner. You operate differently, because if you have faith in something, that means you believe it. When you believe in something, you're active. You move differently than those who have hope. They desire it for it to happen, but they don't believe that it's fully possible. Hope is cute. Dreaming is cute. I mean, everybody, you start off with a dream, but you know that dream can never come into fruition until you get involved. It can never come into fruition until you get involved, until you, again, once you get involved, you know, he's talking about my work ethic is crazy. And I teach my kids about that. It's like, my work ethic is relentless. Every successful person that you will ever meet in life, they have an extreme work ethic. They don't, nothing knocks them off their path. They have an extreme work ethic. And then when you're super successful, you learn to balance that with family. You understand that, you know, okay, you can have success and all the money in the world, but, you know, I understood that early on, that you got to balance that. So I encourage anybody, you have to balance that. I remember I did this movie, and the executive producer had the movie showing her on the water, and the guest speaker was someone she went to school with, and he's got who created Friends. And he kind of like got on a personal note and said, hey man, listen, I was very fortunate, made tons of money and all this. If I could do it all over again, I would have paid attention to my kids. My kids are all grown-ups, and I don't have a relationship with them because I didn't balance that. You know, and that's important. So, you know, so the whole work ethic and the mentality and understand about the difference between hope and belief and say, you know, but then a consistent effort, it's everything, man. The consistency in the effort.
And that kind of plays into the next thing too, and that's about the values, because for a long time, where I found my value was an affirmation from others, and where that value came from was from hard work. And so I thought, especially as a man, I work hard, I create success, and then I get my affirmation, and I've done what I'm supposed to as a man, without really, I would say, without care of what that does to my child, because I was early father as well. My oldest son's 20 years old, and so he was my inspiration. But I went about that affirmation to show him what a man was all the wrong way. Rather than spending the time with him at a young age, I wanted to go out and make the money, because that's where I thought it was. Because I only had really one other father in the neighborhood, and he worked at TWA. His wife worked at TWA. But in our neighborhood, they were pretty well off. They had a clubhouse, they had a pool, they had all the Nerf guns, and all the things. And I was like, man, he's got a good life. But what I didn't realize until we were older is we never saw his dad. His dad would come in and like tell us to go to bed at night, yell at us when we were up too late. We never spent time with his dad. We took like a vacation or two here and there, but he never saw his dad. And so that's when you talk about life balance.
But think about that, you know?
Yeah.
If you ask any one person what's most important to them, like, money's nice. Everybody likes to have money. But relationships, solid relationships supersedes that. Solid relationships supersedes money. I know a lot of billionaires. And so you got the adult billionaires and their kids, and they're suffering. And they're frustrated because their parents are off making the billions and they don't have a relationship. Money, you know that old saying, money can buy you love?
Right.
Money can never buy you a real relationship. They can buy you companionship. Nice things and some company. But even then, the company that you keep is based upon what you have and don't have. But I'm talking about real genuine things. You know, if they want to trade it in, you know, it's kind of like Steve Jobs on his deathbed. He said, he's billions. He said, he just misunderstood. If you got people that's important to you, focus on that, not the money. Again, money is nice, but
There's a balance.
it has its place. And you gotta, you know, really think about what life is, what life means. You have to figure out what life means to you. Well, it's kind of like defining success.
Right.
Everybody, you know, like beauty is not beholden. Everybody defines things differently. So you have to tap in on what that is to you, even what your affirmation is, even what makes you feel like you're a man or you're a woman, or what you need, or what you value in life. You have to tap into that.
I've gotten in reverse though. The closer I've gotten to my happiness, the more abundance I've had in other ways, because I'm living in a positive way, right? So like my second son has a totally different father experience. I have a great relationship with my older son, but Tyson gets time. He gets all the time in the world. And now we found a way to balance that in reverse. So I knew the time was important because my 20-year-old was 20 and I was 40. and here's this other little dude. And it was wild because it was like, one, anybody who's met Tyson or like Gina knows me since I was born, obviously, the riff on sport. And it's like a little me.
Who's Gina?
That one right there.
No, that's my brother.
He's like me. When you see him, he moves like me, he talks like me. And it's so cool because as I'm healing my inner child, I get to heal my son, save him from maybe trying to unravel some of the stuff I had to unravel. And I never know, because you never know how it's going to be told if it's over. But that's the way I found my balances. I realized that it's quality over quantity, right? And so the time I spent with him was blocked out.
Well, guess what told you that? Your experience.
My experience.
It's your greatest teacher. And if you're smart enough, you'll pay attention to it. Because we're not all fortunate enough to have a lot of time with every experience. I mean, that's all life is, right? A multitude of experiences. And so you just have, sometimes you gotta just sit back and take a look and just kind of reevaluate your surroundings. They say, you know, you can tell about someone's success or how successful they will or not be by the strong 5 people around them. If you look at that circle, you just pay attention. Don't say a word. Look who they are around consistently. You'll see if they have a shot. Because what we do, you mimic those you're closest to. You know, it's just natural. You know, you see a best friend, they act alike, they laugh at the same stuff. You know, it's just what it is, you know. So it's never too late to, well, a lot of times it's not too late to just kind of pause and kind of like, let me just kind of reevaluate. Let me look at my line. Let me see who's in my circle. And just really look at, like you were constantly reevaluating.
My circles have changed. I saw some like childhood friends.
Bro,
Like you're saying.
Listen, my circle,
I had a group of guys, none of us had money, talking about making money when we were.
but see, it's not the money.
Right.
I have a gang of people with money. I know a lot of shady people with money. I know people with crazy billions. He's a billionaire, but I said, dude, you see him? He's at 12 billion. You know how long it takes to get there? Even from 1 billion? That's a lot of money. So it's not about that because money never indicates the character of a person. It does not matter. It's a very dark people do some very dark things with a lot of money. So that's not the indication of the character. I'm looking at, you go rob me, my pocket's full of the rabbit is. I want to see what kind of man you are. I want to see what kind of woman you are. They're like, it doesn't matter how much money we have. We can give that. But you want, like, you do a business partner, you do a business partner based on 3 basic essentials. Their knowledge and their character, if you're smart. Because a friend of mine told me a true story. There was this couples, all well-to-do couples, playing golf. So the husbands had the wife, and the husband told his wife, he said, yeah, we're thinking about, you know, he and I think about doing some business. Now, mind you, this is just a conversation between them two. The couple before them, they don't hear the conversation. They said, yeah, we're thinking about doing this venture together. And she said, simply says to him, she's like, you ain't the guy who's just cheating in golf? If he's not cheating in golf, think about that. He's like, oh shit. Sometimes it's the little things. If I'm going to cheat at golf, you think I won't cheat about $100 million? If I can get away with it, yeah, I think I'm going to get away with it. You know,
Yeah,
so
you're not going to throw off the card.
yeah, we just talking about character, you know, and even getting this business, you know, and you want, so how do you want to be defined? And so I'm very fortunate, but my circle is, I know a lot of people in the business, but my personal circle is extremely small. You have to play things close.
Was it always that way, or did you have an experience to talk to?
Always. Because I watched, and I've seen many people fall. I've seen many people got taken advantage of. And, you know, that's where you hear these stories. these people are unaliving themselves because of those situations.
Yeah.
Because it's over the years, it's gotten too much for them. And so you have to, in my business, it's great, it's entertaining, it's fun. And yes, you can do well financially, but you have to learn to keep your personal life your personal life. You can't live for the business.
Is that especially true in there, or do you think it applies everywhere, right?
I think it applies everywhere.
It's kind of like taking your work home with you too, right? Like, and sometimes in the corporate world, let's just say the world, when you work in a job, and I go home, I had the experience, right? I would go home, and whatever that frustration was, the people closest to me didn't get the fake face, right? So I call it a mask. My sons call it a mask. I had the happy mask on at work because that's what I had to have.
I don't think that's a fake face. I mean, it's because it's a time and place for everything.
Well, I don't.
If you go to another country, you speak their language. You have to be able to communicate with them.
Sure.
You know, when you go.
I just mean my experience of happiness. I was my bandwidth by the time I got home was gone. I had to maintain a certain bandwidth at work because of what I did. And so unfortunately, when I was younger in my days, when I go home to people I was close with, my relationships, they didn't get that because my bandwidth was gone. I had faked it all day. And so I would project onto them.
But again,
So that's what we're talking about.
I don't think it's a thing. You have to compartmentalize things. When people work with abuse,
Well, that's what I'm saying. How do they do
you
that?
have to listen, my work's my role.
Okay.
I don't, just me personally in my life, I know a ton of people. I don't call you my friend just because I know you. A friend, if you hear me say friend, that's a term of the beginning. I got love for you. There's nothing you can ask of me to a living. You know, seriously, so when I call someone my friend, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So you're either a stranger or you're either a stranger or you're an acquaintance or your friend.
A lot of acquaintances.
I have a ton of them. And that's cool because all relationships are based upon different things. But you have to keep it that way. Because you have to keep it that way because you have to protect yourself, right? You have to make sense of your life. You know, I always say, listen, you got 3 people in your life. It does not matter who they are, family or not. There's 3. If you look at your life and everybody you know, family or not, they fit in one of 3 categories. They cannot be 2. They cannot be 3. They can always change, but they only can be 1 at a time. Everybody in your life fits in 1 of 3. 1, there's no particular order. You got people who are leeches. You gotta just take. They don't add to your life. It's no benefit. Then you got 2, the people who want to bring you down, who want to hurt you, who want to cripple you, who not really cheer you on, who envy you, who want to see you fall. And then you have 3, those people who cheer for you, whether you're up or down. They root for you, even when things are going good for them. They're in your corner. You literally only have 3. You cannot name any other characteristic than those 3. So everybody in your life, you just like, where does she fit? Where does he fit? And all you do is look at how they treat you. Look how they treat them. Like, they fit in one of those categories. Now, you got to have the balls to say, this is who they are. And you got to meet them for what they are. So me, you know, I'll be everybody like that, my personal life and about my professional life. You got to see how, okay, this person just wants to hang out with me because the light's on me and they want to shine. Oh, yeah, where are we going? Nowhere. You know, so you just got to figure that out. You know, in your life. Yeah. And you just like good, like he has been genuine. This is like family. It's not a friend. This is family. Like it is a no-brainer. Like I even told you that. It's like, dude, you don't text me. You don't ask me that. I'm like, that's stupid. You're my brother. Are you kidding me?
It was like one word of intro. Okay, it's like, what? Why are you not calling?
Yeah, like why are you not calling me? But he said, no, stop it already. This business will get to my head.
Yeah.
Like we're family. Like what are you doing? But, you know, and I always said, you know, fame and fortune does not change you. It only allows you to be more of who you already are. It just gives you access to be more of who you are. So if you're a charitable person, it allows you to be more charitable. If you're a person who always want to be flashy and very loud, it allows you to do that. It only enhances those qualities. It doesn't change you. It gives you access to be more of that already.
So what would you, when you go back and I try and talk to these other men about this stuff? These are guys who are growing up there, and I hope we get a chance to talk, push on more too. It's special duty. But
You special, bro? If he says it, I believe it. That's my brother.
He is. He is. He's going to do great things.
So, these guys are growing up in situations where we grew up,
But
not where I grew up. I grew up in that area, but you've been in my house, and it's a different kind of thing. I have my own stuff, and everything's relative. But when I go in and try and tell these young men why they should have hope and what the secret is, my thing is that hope. Why they should have actions to their hope.
Why should you
And throw away hope.
Believe, my brother. That's not like the church.
Why should you believe? And we talk about the action part of it, and I kind of wanted to know secondhand. When I was in tough spots before, and we've had conversations, and I've looked at things. How do I put that on a broader scale? How would you put it on a broader scale to say where you're at does not define where you be?
I'm so glad you asked the question. My man, listen to me. Let me just tell you this in this way, and I'll answer your question. Yeah. Let me let you know the real deal. I am born and raised St. Louis. My mom, she got pregnant when she was in high school, junior in high school. She drops out. She gets married to this man. There's 7 of us, my brothers and sisters. 2 sets of twins, 5 girls, 2 boys. I grew up extremely poor. By the time I was a freshman in high school, that was my 10th school. I'm homeless many times. No food, no clothes, no. Listen, when I played sports, homie, this is real deal. When I played sports, it was so challenging. I remember just, and this is, going to Hazelwood East. But because I used to try to wrestle, football the whole nine. I would have to wait until my buddy finishes his heat so I could borrow his shoes. I've never owned a pair of cleats. I wouldn't eat for days. I had to miss school because I didn't eat for days. I was too weak to walk. My shoes had holes in them where I could literally feel the ground. My pants were short. They had buttons and pins to hold my pants. Yo, kid, when I say it was hard times, I went whole winters with no gas, food, or electric. For us to have a house phone, it was a treat. Oh, shit, phone. And then, next month is off. What I'm saying that I grew up, when I say poor, I don't mean poor because I didn't have the fancy clothes or a bike. I didn't have the extensions. And so you can get caught up. And I had to learn the hard way because, for me, and then my environment. My uncles were heroes, but they were drug dealers. I love them still to this day. They're all gone. It was almost like a typical urban story. The girls were good girls. My uncles were drug dealers and pimps, but they were good guys in my eyes. And so you didn't have a lot of good teaching. And they never taught me how. They taught me how to be a man in a different way. And it took me a long time to learn how to be a real man, especially with my adversities of struggling. And now, mind you, I knew Janet. Janet don't know this stuff. Even in high school, I was struggling. I used to have to lie so much. Maybe that's how my acting is good. I used to lie, oh man, I forgot my pencil and paper. Can I borrow a pencil and paper? Every day. For 4 years, that was my first time ever going to school at one place for 4 years in high school. But that was my life. It was just a hustle to get by. My life was about surviving. So I was always behind the 8 ball. I mean, listen, I grew up because I was so malnutrition. When I was a freshman and sophomore in high school, I was 4'11", 97 pounds. struggle. Every day was struggle. Every day was struggle just to go to school because I didn't have school, clothes, I didn't have money. It was before they had the lunch programs, and it was brutal. It was not one day I would want to go back to, but I'm thankful for the lesson because that's why I speak with such conviction now. I remember one day as a little boy, when I said, man, I sell Porsche by myself. And I just said, I wanted something different. Hear my mom cry every night because she's trying to provide. Oh, by the way, my mom, she ended up having to raise, she was 24. She had to raise 7 kids by herself. 7. I didn't grow up with a father. That dude left. So I had to learn about manhood. I had to learn about survival. I had to learn so many things at such a young age. And so, the weight of the world is on your shoulders, man. The weight of the world is so heavy. But you can't give up. So you got to understand that. Listen, you see other people who made it. You see other people do positive things. When I went to high school in Hazelwood East, it was one of the best experiences and most embarrassing experiences also. But it was so good because I saw, this is the form of beautiful weather, everybody. You know what I saw? So it was expected of you guys. Yeah, you too. It was I come from the hood. That's my first time living. I came from St. Louis Avenue, Vanderbilt, who's community. You know what I'm saying? And I came to a neighborhood for the first time because my mom was trying to change our lives, and we're in this place that we really can't afford. It's the first time I've ever seen lawns with full lawns, all the windows. It's the first time I'm seeing middle-class African Americans. Never seen them before. First time around white people. I'm like, fish out of water. It was like, oh my God. And check this out. It was the very first time. All this makes a difference what I'm telling you. It was the very first time where not only I saw it, it was part of my experience, but I also heard a term. But I saw African-American kids who were not just good at sports, they were getting good grades. It's the first time I heard the word academic. Academics, first time. So hold on a second. You care about your grades? You doing it like that? And you great sports. It was a whole world opened up to me. And then you have this beautiful, our school at Hazelwood East during that time, it was, Jerry, we say about 70%, 75 easy whites, 60-40, the bomb. Our crew was white and black. It was a mix. And so it opened my eyes, and I'm seeing how people move. I'm seeing how white people move. I'm seeing how middle-class African Americans move. And I'm seeing this, and then I started believing. It was a little bit, it was a slow walk, because I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anybody in my life. I didn't have somebody like Corey. I had to figure out all of my own. And that's why it took such a long time to kind of find my way. But everything served its purpose. Everything served its purpose because when I dare make a move, I always move slow with caution. But when I move with clarity. It was very poignant. I know exactly what I want. And you can't knock me off my goal. You know what I'm saying? So don't get down on yourself because it's not the perfect scenario. Learn to create that. It does not matter if it comes from the black man or white man. We're men. And we're men in support. I didn't have that. All I needed was just listen, I didn't ask for a handout. Just teach me. Because there's a difference. Listen, learn this. There's a huge difference between knowledge and wisdom. They sound alike, but they're completely different. Knowledge is what you know. Wisdom are the choices you make with what you know. So gain that from brothers like this. And don't be afraid to ask questions. You have to do your part. You have to get involved. Change your circumstances about what you do. Do you hear what I said? Change your circumstances by the choices you make. That's part of having a successful mindset. I had to learn that. I didn't have anybody to teach me. I had to learn. I had to make a ton of mistakes. And I was close to losing my life many a times. So ask the question from anybody you trust that will give you a positive response. You get what I'm saying? Don't get caught up if they're just black or they're just white. You want strong-minded, good, positive people who are willing to share information with you. Because, that's what it is. That's how anybody in this room who's ever got successful, they were given information, but they had to do the work to apply it. You get it? Application is key. Knowledge and application. Did I answer your question? Okay.
It's the application is key.
Application is key, bro. Because I can give you the cure. I'll give you the cure to AIDS. If you don't use it, what happens? If I gave you $100 million, most people were pissing away. First thing to do is go shopping instead of investing. Create a lifestyle, create a lifestyle that you can afford that lifestyle, create that, but just be smart, man. Hang around with people who are in the know. Get that information there and apply it. So and be consistent in your effort. Don't have no pity party or why alcohol is hard. Yeah, it is, man. Let's go. It's hard because the more you focus on how hard something is, you just intensify the situation. So if I told you, take this huge box up these 100 flight of steps, if you constantly tell yourself how difficult that challenge is and how heavy this damn box is to get up these flight of steps, it becomes heavier instead of telling you, okay, one step at a time. I can take a break briefly, but I'm gonna get that up there. Let's go. You understand the mindset? Your mind can be your greatest enemy or your greatest advocate. You have to create a space that means the people and the choices you make, create that in your mind, your belief system. Because how you think and your choice of belief, that affects completely the navigate how choices you make in your life. You understand? You're here for a reason, clearly. He believes in you for a reason, clearly. But you have to do the work. You need help? Ask. There's not a person in this room who did all of that whole bullshit. Everybody in here has some type of resource or resources. You dig what I'm saying? You do? That's the silver bullet, man. All right?
So when I end the things on the show, what I like to do is I like to talk about something that I've taken away from this, something that means something to me that you said that changed my perspective, and I like to end with asking you to tell me an excerpt or a piece of wisdom that you can bestow and pass along that can become a mantra. And mine that I'm taking away from this conversation is that hope has no action. Hope has no action.
Just not it, bro.
Right. And so that's what I'm taking away from this.
I think, I just think people, listen, it's not deep. People think it's so magical and these impossibilities. It is so simple. The only way things changes is when you choose it. If you choose, because making a choice is a what? Action. You want change? Take action. Not deep. No magic trick. It's just a real effort. And when you make that action, stay consistent. Because not only that consistency is so cool, because that consistency not only changes things for the moment, but it becomes a lifestyle.
I moved my mindset on that. And that'll be my final piece to say, so we can go back to the ringer. But my final piece was I moved my mindset from fake it till you make it to do it till you become it. And why not?
Why not
become what you want to be.
Be the CEO. Let's say the CEO is knowing that consistent efforts overcome.
That's a good one. I like that one.
That's the mantra.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you, bro.